Good evening, everybody. We are so excited about tonight, and we have an exciting lineup of awesome, powerful, wonderful couples who are going to share their stories of being in love, in sickness, and in health. So, Faith?
As she said, this is an exciting night. We're looking forward to hearing some of these great stories and testimonies, and hopefully, those of you that are viewing right now will be blessed by what you're going to hear from not only the couples, but we have some experts on here that are going to help us kind of walk through some of the issues and circumstances that we as married couples may face. So, without further ado, I want to go ahead and begin with introducing those that are on the panel discussion with us this evening. I am blessed and honored to have two people who I feel very close to, and I'm excited to have them in place. John and Jackie Howard, thank you for joining us. Let me see. John and Jackie have been married for about 38 years. They're there with Lady Carolyn and Bishop Flynn at Atlanta Metro Church. And if you can, just talk to us a little bit briefly about the challenges that you've had to face from a health standpoint.
Ooh. Okay, so I will share from the standpoint of when John got sick, and it came out of nowhere, honestly, and about a couple of days within that time frame, we kind of was able to understand a little bit more about what was going on. Actually, he had oh Lord, what's the name of it? Salmonella poisoning in his aorta.
Okay.
And I had never heard of that before either. Neither. And so that was a real challenging time for me as well as for him.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to delve deeper into that and how you had to kind of walk through that. But that kind of gives us a clue as to where we're going to go when it comes to you and John. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, we're going to pivot. All right. Yeah. That's all right. Okay. All right. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and intro our moderator, and I'm going to let her navigate this whole scenario. Okay. Because yeah, I just got a text from my moderator, and she said, that's not what we said. But anyway, so anyway, our moderator tonight, I'm always excited to have my daughters on join me for anything that I am attempting to do. And so our eldest daughter, Sequoia Howard, and I think I lost her. I don't know where she went.
Yes, she is. She's right there in the middle. She's there.
Yeah, but I don't see her up
She's
here.
There in the middle.
Oh, okay. All right. Sequoia is going to be our moderator for the evening. Sequoia is the mother of 3 of my beautiful grandchildren. Okay, I'll share with you tonight, John and Jackie. Y'all can have them too. But she is an awesome young lady. She is a part of an organization, Health Empowers. And she has an awesome job of teaching young people how to stay healthy and fit. That's part of what she does. So Sequoia, take it away. Thank you so much.
What's up, everybody? Hi. It's so great to have an opportunity to be on here with family, because I know everybody on here just about. So I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight. The way I want to kick it off, though, what my dad started doing, my co-moderator up here, what he started doing is I do want to go around and give each of you an opportunity to briefly introduce yourself and give us a very brief synopsis of the health challenges, because we're going to take a deeper dive into it. But I just want everybody watching to know who we're working with and who we're talking to this evening. So we talked to mom and dad already. That's my in-loves over there. I like them shirts too. I like those shirts. So. All right, and then we're gonna go to my wonderful cousins. So I'm gonna just go in the order that I see on my screen. Jared and Charity, what's up, fam?
What's up?
What's going on?
Hey,
What it do? All right, tell the people who you are, and y'all's health stuff was very recent too. So give us a brief synopsis of that.
Okay. We are Charity and Jared Clark in Orlando, Florida. As Sequoia already mentioned, Pam and Arnett are my uncle and aunt, and I'm super happy to be a part of this. Our health challenge was very recent, last summer. Yeah, July, August, September-ish timeframe. My husband and I both contracted COVID, but my husband had a very, very severe case. He was in the hospital for about a week. And for about 6 to 8 weeks, it was just really scary, kind of dicey. And our lives literally turned upside down. And so we're going to kind of be talking about our experience with that tonight.
Yes. Okay. Hey, listen, she just set the bar for what the brief synopsis looks like, everybody. So thank y'all. Thank y'all for that. We're gonna get back to y'all in a moment. Mom and Dad, we got to you all. Pastor Todd and Pastor Ingrid, what's up?
Hi, how are you?
How are y'all?
Great, and yourself?
Good. Please tell the people who you are and what you all do. And I do know that you all had some health challenges as well. So please give us that.
So we're Todd and Ingrid Pickett. We have Love First Marriage Movement. We do marriage coaching and counseling and premarital counseling. We also pastor here in the Washington, D.C. metro area. We have had health challenges. I'm not allowed to get sick in my house. So I am the caretaker around here.
That's hilarious. You're not allowed to get sick.
I'm not allowed to get. Sorry, Corey. You know that I'm 5 years younger than her. I think she married me so I can take care of
her. Hilarious. Listen, I'm excited to have you all on here. I like y'all shirts too. Y'all shirts extra dope. That hashtag love first got a ring to it. I love it so much. All right, and Mom, if you'll bring me back on so I can see who else is next. All right, bet. My bro and sister, literally, brother Kevin, Micaiah, Warren. One of y'all, please introduce you both and give us just a brief synopsis of the health challenges you guys have faced as a married couple.
I believe I see my beautiful wife down there. I'll let her go ahead.
Take it away, Mick.
Well, all right. So we are Kevin and Micaiah Warren, daughters of Arnett and Pamela.
Uh-oh, she went away. Kevin, you got to go, bro.
Uh-oh, boom. Listen, she just lined it up. Son and daughter of Pamela and Arnett Moore. Oh, there she is. Mm-hmm. Do I still see you?
Yeah, she on here. It's all right. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, listen, a little bit about the challenges that we faced. My wife, I know we don't look like what we've been through and what we go through and endure, but she was diagnosed with sickle cell early. I believe 2 or 3 years old, and then also with alopecia at 9. And so just the health challenges we faced and share is kind of a little bit about how to be on the go while kind of suffering through, enduring through sickle cell, which is a disease that can hit at any given moment. We have signs and symptoms, but it's really a whenever and sporadic kind of disease. And so we have to, that's not why we're not together right now. We just kind of have to do what we have to do when we can do it. And that's a part of our motto. And so that's just a little bit about what we'll talk about is kind of how we do that and how we maintain the strength of our love through that.
Bet, thank you. And I just want to make sure it's clear for anybody that's watching, they are together. They're just not in the same location.
So for sure. Oh yeah, listen.
They like together.
Thank you. Yeah, all the way together. Like
out here building empires and such. All right, bet. Thank you, Mick and Kevin. The Wards, Pastors Robert and Geraldine. Hey, what's up, family? Please introduce yourselves. Tell everybody who you are and briefly about the health challenges that you guys have faced and are currently facing.
Okay, we are Pastors Robert and Geraldine Ward.
We recently moved from South Florida to Tallahassee to join our overseers church. We live with HIV. Been living with that for 21 years as of February of this month, along with numerous other challenges, but that's the main one. And so we have to make sure that we stay healthy, stay positive in the way that we think and live. I call my husband the $6 million man because along with living with HIV, he's had several hip replacements, got pins in his right ankle. He's got new lenses in his eyes. So I call him the $6 million man. So that's a little bit of our story.
The bionic man, huh? We're going to dive into it a bit more, and I know you're going to dive into your story a little bit more, but please tell the folks, y'all have a dynamic book that's out right now, so please let them know about that.
Yes, we have a book out. The title of our book is For Better and For Worst. And yes, it's worse, not worse. I know that the vowels are for worse, but ours is for worse because we are talking about how HIV was the worst thing that we could have ever imagined happening as a part of the In Sickness Health of our vows. And it's available on Amazon, iTunes, Kindle. You can reach out to us. We can personally sign it and mail you a copy. All of that good stuff.
Dope. All right. Thank you so much, Wards. The Jenkins, Lee and Liz Jenkins, how y'all doing? Let me get you to unmute for me, please.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody.
What's up? There it is.
What's up? Okay. So I'm going to be the mouthpiece, I've been told. So me and Mr. Jenkins, we were talking about health, right? Make sure I follow this correctly.
You're letting us know a little bit about who you are, how long you've been married, and what a brief synopsis of the health challenges you guys have faced.
All right. Well, we're 26 and counting, married. We wasn't no high school sweethearts. This thing just kind of happened. I'm with the $10 here, but anyway, so the health disparities that we faced since 2018 is that Mr. Jenkins was diagnosed with large B-cell lymphoma. The summit of that was a cancer. So in 2018, we were diagnosed with that, stage 4, matter of fact, at the time of when we discovered it. And today we're in remission. We are in remission. So we're doing good. We still have our challenges. I guess today we'll talk about some of those things.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we have a really special guest on here, Miss Lauren Walker, who's a licensed counselor and social worker. Please tell us who you are, a little bit about what you do.
Sure. I am a therapist at Lee's Place, and Lee's Place is a not-for-profit counseling center in Tallahassee, and we work with people who are experiencing grief, loss, and trauma. And all of the health issues that y'all have just described would meet the criteria for grief and loss, and in many cases, trauma. And it can impact a family and a couple in so many significant ways. And so we work with a lot of individuals and families who have experienced unexpected, and in some cases expected, but in many cases unexpected health crises. So I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on. Thank you to all of you for being on. I'm going to pose this very first question to Mom and Dad, John and Jackie. For those of you listening, I'm going to slip and call them Mom and Dad this whole time because that's what I call them in real life. But John and Jackie, that sounds so weird. I ain't going to be able to do it. Mom and Dad. And I want to pose this question to you all first because I was actually around for both major health challenges that you all had. Mom, I know you started out talking about the aneurysm that Dad had in his aorta, and then you also having renal cancer, kidney cancer. Can you talk to us a little bit about just how you held on to faith, being on both sides, being the one that was sick and being the caretaker of the one that was sick, how you held on to faith in spite of those health challenges, like boom, right there in your face?
Wow. Well, it was overwhelming for myself when I was diagnosed with renal cancer. My first response was about my family, like, oh my God, you know, how to tell. My husband knew, but how to tell my children. And so going through that process, my number one thing that I just went to was to God. And I was determined to stay before him daily, because the world, the diagnosis, the doctors, my body is telling me something different. And so I stayed in the word of God, and I stayed with my ear to heaven, honestly, to hear what he was saying to me, because as many I'm sure have experienced as well, the thoughts of negativity that comes day and night, and constant, you know, going to the doctor, you hearing this, you hearing that. And so my main thing that I thrived on was spending time with God every day for myself to be strengthened. My husband encouraged me, and I have a team of members that was very supportive and was praying for me.
Okay, what about you, Dad?
Well, at the time when my wife was going through that, I felt hopeless, and I had to trust God, and I buried myself in Scripture, and that's what encouraged me when I wanted to lose hope. And for me, when I went through my aneurysm and my salmonella sickness, I was in pain for 11 straight days, and I was really, really, really sick. I couldn't eat anything for 11 days, and finally, when I finally went to the hospital, um, that's when I was in pain the day before I had to go to surgery, and I had this sharp pain and crawled up on the bed, and my wife had to get my attention.
Yeah. He handled it really well, though. I'm gonna tell you, I probably wouldn't have handled that as well. The pain he was in, he didn't complain. He didn't. He was. It was like I knew he was in pain, but he never said anything negative the entire time.
Yeah,
he never did.
Wow. I want to pose the same question to the wards. You guys have what I would call sustained faith in this thing with living. You said you both living with HIV for 21 years or 20
21
years,
years. 21.
years this month, February. What are some things that you all have done to really cling to faith and to continue progressing forward together as a couple? And specifically, I want you all to dive a little bit into, if you don't mind, that HIV diagnosis and how that came about for you guys as a couple, and how y'all decided to stick it out together.
Well, we'll try not to tell too much because a lot of it is in the book. So I'll put this up here. Yeah. I know how clear it is. But as a couple, I believe the things that has helped us maintain as a couple, personally, our love and our commitment to one another, and our love and commitment to the Lord, and then the words that the Lord has spoken over our lives regarding ministry, because no matter what, we wanted to continue to serve. And so I think that was one of the things that helped us to stay connected to one another and to the Lord by continuing to serve. There were times when I know that my husband was not feeling well, but he would still get up and say, I'm going to church. He would be nauseous. We'd have to get ginger ale or whatever, but he would say, put my clothes on. So I put his suit on, put his clothes on, and we would go to church. There was one time I had to bring a blanket. He had to sit wrapped in a blanket in church because he wasn't feeling well. So our commitment to one another, our commitment to the Lord, and then our commitment to continue to serve in ministry and be a beacon of light. And the HIV diagnosis was really devastating. I think I was angry for about 7 years, just angry because we had talked about that at the onset of our marriage and not having anything like that to have to deal with, talk about it, and then for it to pop up in our marriage was really a challenge.
Yeah, it was. We went through some bumps in the road the early part of our marriage because um, Geraldine was alone. She had a lot of things that were going on with her family. Her family would not connect with her because she married me. Um, and in 2000, I contracted, went to the hospital with bacterial meningitis. Was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and the doctors had told her if I had not had the seizure that I had and you not got me to the hospital, that I wouldn't be here. That was one, and then to wake up 3 days later, and me not understanding where I was, um, and then it wasn't until we were getting ready to leave the hospital the last day of being there. The doctor wanted to take blood work for the last time, and we went to his office 2 weeks later, and he told me the diagnosis, and I just couldn't believe it, you know. And I remember we going back home and had to come back 2 weeks later because I had my wife to take the blood test. And I remember sitting on the side of the bed, 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning, getting ready to pack my bags and leave. And Geraldine came to the side of the bed where I was, and she asked me what I was doing. I said, I'm getting ready to pack my bags. I'm getting ready to leave. God will heal you. I'm the one that sinned and committed adultery. He'll heal you. But wherever I go, I know I'll die wherever I am. And she told me then that that wasn't going to be so. That she was going to stay, and she was committed to the marriage and committed to the relationship. And I think it was we made a move to Georgia, and that's when everything kind of hit bottom, and I ended up in the hospital. My brother had to come to the job where I was. I was working for Red Lobster at the time, and he had to, the other men at the job had to pull me out of the job and carry me because I could not move. I could not walk.
Wow.
And I ended up in the hospital. And I remember the nurse came and sat next to me, and she said, Mr. Ward, right now everything is shutting down. You have full-blown AIDS, and we're gonna take care of you. Your wife and your children are gonna go where they're gonna go, and we're gonna take care of you until you die. And they pumped me for the medication, and that was the expectancy. So that was 2004.
Here we are
Hmm.
And here we are today.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's incredible testimony, and we'll dive a bit more into that. Pastor Todd and Pastor Ingrid, I want to tap in on y'all really quickly. Just kind of hearing that story for those that may be watching and that may be listening. If you can give us like a top 2 things that faith-wise that it takes as a couple to endure something like that and to continue progressing in sickness and in health, ... till death do us part. What are like top 2 things that you would tell someone?
Well, I think it's really about love, right? I think it's really about understanding what love is and what that really means. We've been married for 30 years, and I have to admit, when we first got married, because of how I grew up, I didn't really know what love looks like. So that's something that I learned from my wife and learned from her family. But it's really about love in your relationship with God. I think that's probably the key thing, the main thing in terms of that. When you have your vertical relationship proper, your horizontal relationship gets in line. And so I think that's probably the key thing, along with just communication, right? Talking about where you are, how you're feeling, what's going on with you. I think especially for those of us, we have adult kids, having help, talking through things with family and understanding that you do have family around you that can help. I think those things are key.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm gonna shift on over to Miss Lee and Mr. I'm sorry, Miss Liz and Mr. Lee Jenkins, and posing that same question to you that I asked the other two couples previously about how have you all been able to hold on to faith? What are some things that you all have been doing, especially as you're still going through it? Praise God for you being in remission, sir. But talk to us a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think he'll chime in on some areas where he feel comfortable. And most of you who know Lee know he has a speech impediment. He'll say that up front, but so he's not that nervous. Just want to be sure of what he says. This has been very challenging, to say the least, and everyone on the panel can probably agree. It's life changing. When we were diagnosed in 2019, it seemed like life stopped at a complete halt. And but because of our faith, we had support, family support, our church support, but we had each other looking at each other going, is this what they mean about sickness and in health? Well, not to break things up on a serious side, but there I was sitting, I'm not sure. Because it was life-changing for us both. And there I was looking at someone who was telling me we had stage 4 cancer. But the one thing that really, outside of our faith, because through it all, we were trusting God through it all. And this one time we were in an oncologist's office, and like you said, you get so much bad news. It's never, okay, here it is. Although our oncologist was very positive and upbeat, he still gave us the facts. And he said, yep, you got stage 4. Yep, it's all right there. Yeah, there it is, all of your body. And we're like, wait. So hearing that, I just became mute. And I looked up at Lee and he said, it's okay, baby. We got this. We're going to believe the word of God. And I was like, wait. Okay. And it was the stand that he took in that moment, not just for what he was going through, but because he knew what that was going to change for our lives, our marriage, and everything moving forward. He just stood there and said, it's okay. We're going to believe the word of God. And I said, okay. And in that moment, I trusted him. I trusted him as the caregiver, but I trusted him as my husband, that regardless, even before this, we always say God brings us to a point. We always say God carries us in our relationships. We always say God cares every day, and he's always our provider. He's our doctor. He's all these things for us. And there I was looking toward my husband thinking, now what we gonna do? And in his stand as a husband and provider, he said, we're gonna trust God. And not only did I have to trust God, but I had to trust him. And that was huge. That was huge in a marriage. Even though I could have said up until that year, up until that entire time in my marriage, I trusted him, but I really had to trust him because life was changing for us. Mm-hmm. And it was tremendously changing for me because the person who was my provider was now becoming the person that I was going to be the caregiver for. And that looked different. It looked a lot different. And I was fearful, but I was able to stand in that and trust him the entire step of the way. Even when there were times where where I know he got discouraged, I still had to pull on those words of his faith of saying, we're believing the word of God. And I said, okay, that's where we are. And in every trial, every time we fell back sometimes, every step of that way, that was the one thing that for me, I can say I held on to. I believe the word of God, but not only that, I saw the victory that God had said to me, he would be okay. He would be okay. So, yeah.
Something really dope that you just pulled out in talking about that word provision and viewing God as our provider. A lot of times we think of that provision as money, food, but not necessarily in terms of faith, in terms of the courage it takes to endure something like that. And especially within a marriage, to not just be like, hey, yeah, you the one sick. I ain't gonna be able to do this. I'm gonna chunk the deuces real quick. You know, that's incredible. Cousins, Jared and Charity, yo, you guys went through this very recently, as you mentioned, just last summer. You both contracted COVID, and Jared got hit really, really hard with it. Charity, I'm going to come to you first, and then Jared, I want you to answer from your standpoint. Charity, what were some very practical, like daily things that you did to hold on to your faith while you're sitting there watching your husband, not knowing whether he was going to make it home or not?
Yeah. So honestly, the one of the first things that comes to mind, Sequoia, is unbeknownst to me, the Holy Spirit had been preparing me in a roundabout way to go through this. Probably the most practical thing that I did was build a community around me. I think that it's so important to build the boat before the storm. And again, I didn't know that that's what I was doing at the time, but I had people in my life who just showed up, whether it was in prayer, intercession, groceries, trying to like whatever we needed, they just showed up. And honestly, I was able to borrow their faith because this thing like hit us so quickly, so abruptly, so heavy. I was like, what is happening right now? Like, what is happening? And so because I was sick too, not to the point that he was, but I would be in my bed and the Bible app I just let it play. Like, I don't have a lot to give right now, Jesus, but I know that you have everything I need. And between, just the community, the people who like just supported us, we would open the door. Someone would like ring the doorbell. I would go. By the time I got there, they were gone. Groceries were at my door. My kids, I have 4 kids. We have 4 kids, and they were pretty much raising themselves. So they brought food like Pop-Tarts, cereal, things that fruit, like things that they could just eat and like live. And I think for me, for sure, those 2 things were like the most practical things that I could do to like really increase my faith. There were friends from church, cousins. I was talking to everybody like, yo, I'm on the brink. Can you pray? Can you like whatever? Because it was very, very abrupt and very like aggressive. And just to be quite honest, it's very scary. There were people around us, like in our community, same age, same situations. They didn't make it. And so I leaned on a lot of other people, and I leaned on God's word, just like meditating on it all day.
Yeah. Wow. I love that you pulled that out, because essentially what you did was you made yourself more aware of the nearness and the presence of God by playing his word, letting that roll through your house the entire time. That's dope. Jared, what about you? How did you what gave you the fight to hold on to faith that I'm getting back home to my family and I will be whole and healed?
Yeah, absolutely. So being hospitalized with the Delta variant of COVID-19 and being diagnosed with COVID pneumonia, being in a step down ICU unit, it's like very realization. There's no fighting or living with this. There are 2 options to leave this hospital. It is 1, to get better, or 2, to die. And it's just this very real thing of like struggling, gasping for every breath, just, if I did have breath, coughing up blood, and that just going on. And it was a very real moment. And in this, similar to Charity, I would just have the Bible app playing, or I'd have worship music going, because I was in complete isolation. I couldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't have any visitors, even if they were vaccinated or anything. It was just, I was in a room. The nurse and everybody, if they had to come in, they were in like hazmat suits. So there was no interaction. So at that point, like I had to talk and commune with the Lord. And in that, it was just one of those situations where in that moment felt like the Lord had his hand on me and told me, I'm not done with you yet. And the whole backstory is, Charity and I, we moved to Florida to help plant a church, did all that, helped the church plant, and got burned out and like so many other believers were just kind of like, all right, church, I'm done with church. Like very tired. And it was almost like in that moment of like gasping for breath and for life, God started breathing life not only into my physical body, but into my spirit man. And for the first time in a long time, God began to allow me to dream about, purpose, meaning in life. Because not once when I was in that bed did I miss my coworkers at the job. Not once did I miss, or think about, I wonder how the stock market performed today, or I wonder how my portfolio is looking. I wasn't worried about that. And that moment, it was just me and the Lord and God. I want to be back there for my wife. I want to be back home for my kids. And I don't want to just exist. I want to live. Like, I want to have some meaning. I want to have some gusto to life. I want to wake up and have this new appreciation. I don't want to just sit here in a hospital bed. So I didn't know the process. I didn't know how long it was going to take. And sometimes, there was one day where it was really scary and it looked like things were not going to get any better. And then I'm a firm believer that it was because of prayer that the Lord began to turn things around. When modern medicine wasn't working, when all the IVs and the drugs and the pills that you could take and the injections, none of that was working. But when I started putting out there that this was happening to me and I needed prayer, I needed covering, people began to pray and a difference happened, change happened in my life physically.
Yeah. Listen, cue the praise break music. Yes. Wow. Incredible story. And Lauren, I'm going to come to you in just a moment. I want to get to Micaiah and Kevin, and I saved them kind of for last because their situation is a tad bit different in that they came into their marriage knowing what's up regarding health challenges. As Kevin and Micaiah both said earlier, Micaiah has been living with sickle cell her entire life, and then alopecia areata since 9 years old, and she is now 30 plus years old. So they came into the marriage knowing what was going on. So Kevin and Mickey, can y'all talk to us just a bit about what it has taken for you all from a faith standpoint to first come together and then progress and proceed and be married as long as you guys have? Y'all are at year 13, 12. What year are we at?
We're at 13.
Okay. All right. So yeah, talk to us a little bit about what you all's faith journey has been like together.
Well, I'll just start from the very beginning. I living with a chronic disease and then falling in love that's a faith walk in itself, because you don't know, what the person that you fall in love with is going to think once you reveal this, this background, this history. But I always say my husband is different. He is just different, and in a good way, because he has never, ever, ever made me feel like my life has been a burden, or what I have to deal with is a burden. I think his very first experience with me in crisis mode was when we were dating, and I don't even think we had even gotten to the point of talking about marriage. It might have come up in conversation maybe once or twice, but and if I can remember correctly, we were on the brink of an argument or something like that. But he came and sat in that hospital room, and I believe that was the moment, that I absolutely knew that this man, this gentleman, was different. So for me, that was the beginning of, a different level of faith for me in dealing with sickle cell, and like I said, falling in love and going into a committed relationship. That was a different level of faith for me, because humans are humans, and they have he had a choice, and so I just thank God. Thank God.
But I think that choice, I had a choice, and to kind of piggyback or to just tap in, not piggyback, I think it just becomes a piece of the person. right? I don't think like it's not like and you said it, Sequoia, not to diminish any illness, any sickness, but it was something that we came into it. Like I knew what I was getting into, right? And it was just a part of kind of what made her so amazing. I remember that first time that I was in crisis, and the time you're talking about, dear, is the second time. But the first time, I remember I brought her home. I drove her car home, and her parent, like she, with the wigs, right? And her mom didn't really know if I knew that she was bald, right? So Micaiah has this thing when she, took her medicine, she would just kind of like take off the wig and just kind of need her breath, need her space. And so I remember mom just kind of like, Micaiah, I don't know, should you, do you need to, kind of hide this thing? And I remember looking at her, I was like, no, I know everything. And that was such an empowering kind of statement, but it was like, I know everything about her. Now I want to watch what you do when this happens, right? So I saw dad kind of come in and swoop her up, and like, that's when I realized, like, man, either I need to hit the gym or I need to keep on living and get this grown man strength. Because the way in which he grabbed her, right, it was just like, I was like, no, I don't think I could do that. But I'm watching how they're taking care of her. And I didn't leave that day or that next day. I remember mom asked about food and told me to go take a break and get some food. First of all, I didn't have any money to go get any food. Second of all, I was trying to learn what was really taking place, because there was a moment when you just know. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I think the wards, if y'all can go on mute, I think we're getting some feedback from yours. But go ahead, bro.
It was just a point where I just knew, based upon the trials and tribulations that I had lived through and she had endured with me, I knew, I didn't really know that was my wife, but I knew that was a person that I cared for, to the point where we would be lifelong something. And so it was just a part of her. It was a part of her greatness, a part of what makes her a superwoman. And, it was the way in which we keep our faith through that was just the works, right? Like, some people would think she would fake, because she would be in the hospital and then she would get out of the hospital that day and go right back to doing something, right? Like, or push through and then go to the hospital. And people wouldn't understand what that was, but I would look at her because I knew what that was. And it was just a part of what made her like this superhero to me. And so the faith was easy because she never stopped working. We never stopped working. And so the faith never died out. We literally had to see it every day. We have 4 children.
Yeah. Wow. And I want to say to you out loud and publicly, I say it to you all the time, but thank you for being who you are and loving my sister the way that you do, with integrity and with such great character. I want to pitch it to my parents, Arnett and Pamela. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. I want to pitch it to you all and get you all in on this question, the faith walk. But then I also know that you have a question for Lauren also.
Yeah. I just want to say piggyback off what Kevin just said, because he mentioned us as the parents, and he's coming in as a young man who's interested in our daughter, and we know what she's dealing with, right? So we're not so apt to just turn that over to anybody. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so the fact that he took the initiative, I mean, not only did Kevin sit and watch and stayed at the hospital and stayed at the house to learn how we took care of her, but he researched and he found out what this disease was all about. He found out the types of treatments that there should be. He was able to go into the hospital and say, that's not what she needs. And he has a little
I should have taken their insurance money. They need to pay me. I need some of their money that they get for that too.
And so as parents, as a couple, we learned how to release our daughter to her husband, because he had already proven before they got married that he was very well capable and very much committed to what it took to take care of Micaiah.
Locked in.
Somebody with a child with a chronic disease needed to hear you say that just then. All right.
So, I believe so.
Absolutely. Your question?
I want to go back to something that Pastor Todd said in his conversation with us a little bit earlier, and he talked about a concept that I know us as Christians understand, and that is the vertical relationship affects the horizontal relationship. But I wanted to throw that out to Lauren to kind of delve a little bit more into that as to how the traumatic experience that sickness in marriages kind of brings about as it relates to how not only the patient, but the caretaker now, how that impacts the relationships that are around them. We know that the support mechanism in many of our instances was an integral part of us being able to get through, as Jared and Charity actually disclosed in their situation. Talk to us. Can you talk to us a little bit about how some of the things that challenge people with the exterior relationships that go on when they're faced with these kind of challenges?
Oh, that's a great point. One of the things that is so important that we try to stress with the person in the marriage who becomes kind of the caregiver is that it's part of your job to be the gatekeeper and to be the person who ensures that whatever the energy is in the room, whatever you want to be around that person is sacred, and that you have to ensure that the friends who come into that space, whether it's spiritually or physically, that they are in the same mindset and are pushing and supporting your loved one in the same way that you know they need. There's a great quote from a woman, I don't know if you've read her book, Jill Bolte Taylor. She had a massive stroke, and she's a neuroscientist of all things. And she wrote about her stroke. And one of the things she learned is that as she was healing, it was important at the time, she wasn't married, it was her mother who was her primary caregiver, that her mother had to make sure that she was responsible for the energy that you bring into the room. And that is a very important part of this, is that the caregiver isn't just there to provide care directly to internally into the home, but also to make sure externally that circle of faith and support is sacred. And that you have to be honest and say, she can't take visitors. He is, thank you you can pray for him. I love that so many of the couples have been very straightforward about that. This is what I need from you. And the more honest you can be with your family and friends about what you do need and what you don't need, the better off you can save your energy and also the energy and love that your family member, your loved one really needs at that time. So that's a wonderful point.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Lauren. I like that sometimes we have to be each other's gatekeepers in this marital relationship. Pastor Todd and Pastor Ingrid, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of piggyback a bit more on that as marriage counselors.
Yeah, atmosphere is very important. It's very important to a life, period. But especially when there is healing that needs to take place, and especially also when faith needs to be in the room, in the house, wherever it is. So atmosphere is important, and there's scripture about it where we need to be around those who are going to fill up the space with Jesus, period. So I love that. I'm an advocate for your life follows your words, and period, your life follows your words. So that does play a very important part in terms of healing, and not only in healing, but period in life. So, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. I want to kind of pivot a little bit, because in talking about relationships, specifically marital relationships, marriage has its own set of challenges, period. That's that on that. But then you add health challenges on top of that. And if you have kids, And if you add this, you know what I mean? And it just piles on. So I want to pose this question to all of you, and I'm going to go to Jared and Charity first, and then Lee and Liz, and then we'll follow accordingly. But what are some of the ways that you've been able to keep the love flowing between you two in spite of all the layers of challenges that have come along with in sickness and in health?
Yeah, I guess our situation is a little more unique because it was all of a sudden and then not so much, but it brought a new level of gratitude for life and companionship. And I don't know if any other couple will say this before it really escalated to the point of hospitalization. You know, we were living with COVID for about 8 or 9 days. And when you don't feel well, I feel like sickness, what it tends to do is amplify all of the issues in life and all the problems in your marriage and everything that you don't like about yourself, or you don't like about your marriage, or you don't like about your spouse, because, you know, we had already planned a family vacation with like an Airbnb. So we're like, we have COVID. It feels a lot like the flu right now. So we'll go quarantine at this beach house that we've already rented. And when I tell you, it was like hell on earth. Like the car ride there was awful. Getting there and trying to figure out dinner and the kids, and they want all your attention, and there were not enough Disney or cartoon movies you could play in the DVD player to distract them. And it's just like, I am tired. I'm tired of you. You're tired of me. We're tired of each other. And it's just one of those things where it's like this all happened around my 35th birthday, the COVID diagnosis and everything. And I was like, this was the worst birthday I've ever had in my life, in my whole life. It was just awful.
We're supposed to be talking about how we keep the love.
I'm just saying.
Not like,
hey, he had to set the stage. Set the stage.
But some people just don't realize how like rough this thing is. I remember at some point I just like cried in the shower. I was like, what is wrong with me? I cannot stop crying? Like, what is happening? This is not normal. And it's like this get yourself together kind of moment. And then it's like, once I came home from the hospital, it was like all that stuff was irrelevant and it didn't really matter in the long run. And it just we became more open with our communication. We became more vulnerable with our conversations and the topics that we would discuss. And from there, it was just kind of, we both realized like this could have gone another way, you know, and that was always there. And so it's just, how can we be more intentional? Mm-hmm. At that point, we had 9 years in, and since recovering, we've been able to celebrate our 10th wedding anniversary. And being able to renew our vows and having those vows carry a little more weight because now we've lived it a little bit. You know, not nearly as much as, you know, the rest of the panel, but we look forward to those goals of being there and you know, having an incredible marriage, a God-filled, purpose, meaningful marriage where, you know, our union and our love for one another, inspires other people, maybe brings healing to other people's sets. If all it does is just set the norm for my kids and how marriage should be, then that's a win for me.
That's good. Lee and Liz, same question to you all. How have y'all kept the love flowing, even as you're in the middle of it right now?
Oh gosh, that's a tough question to answer. Sequoia, I was asking him, I said, how did we do that? And he, of course, I'm gonna repeat what he said. He said it was the word of God. It was trusting in the word of God. I said, that's what it was for you, because that's not what it was for me. so just hearing him say that, I say, well, you should say that, because that's not what it was for me. But I think just the togetherness, there were different approaches, things that we had to do that was different. But in a nutshell, it was learning to appreciate each other and every day. It was little things weren't, it's like how you say you spend so much time worrying about this, you spend so much time focusing on things that just wasn't important anymore. The things that were important to us was our today. It was our right now. It was, how do we continue to smile and move in this in a positive way? Because as you know, when you're dealing with sickness, just as the young man just said, when you're dealing with sickness, you find yourself a lot of days crying in the shower. and you bring those days outside of the shower. So we had to learn how to smile in each other's face through it all. We had to smile because what you don't want to see, what you don't want to project, even as the caregiver, is I'm afraid. So you project a lot of smiles, and then you find all types of neat ways to keep saying there's a tomorrow. So you rest in knowing there's a tomorrow. You say, well, that might not have been the best day, but guess what we're going to do tomorrow? We start making plans for our tomorrows to be a better day. And those were things for me, I know, that kept me moving forward, and to keep the love going, because you get discouraged too easy. But it was looking at the tomorrows and looking at, we got another day of this, and just being able to smile and hold each other's hand through it, to laugh about crazy things, even be laughing about the sickness. Those were the things that I remember all the time, every day. Even today, there are days I come in and I go, huh. And then you have to remember what's most important, and you find something to smile about and to rekindle your love.
Yeah.
And we did that. We find new ways to to entertain.
I love that, planning for tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
that's good. Mom and Dad, I want to come to y'all on that same question. Like, how did you, current and past, keep the love flowing despite the health challenges and all the other, traumatic things that comes with a relationship, being the matriarch and the patriarchs of a family?
I think for me, it all started after my surgery. And I had a different appreciation about life, and not sweating the small things and being angry, but just wanting to be with family. And I remember waking up one morning and God told me to be mad. And I said, God, why you want me to be mad? And it got silent. And I said, God, why do you want me to be mad? And he said, make a difference. And I wanted to make a difference in my family life and people who God drawn me to.
For me, I have always, I was looking just back at my life, always have had opposition. I've always been a fighter in the natural, and now I am in the spiritual. I'm not so much in the natural.
Oh, no.
Hey, she'll still throw them hands though about the one.
And so when challenges came, when that came with myself and with my husband, really with him, it's like I rose up. I was determined that I was going to believe God. I had just a lot of things going on with him, because first of all, it was just never heard of. CDC came to the job to try to investigate how did salmonella get, where was that found, and where all this kind of stuff. They wanted to come to our house, and it was just overwhelming trying to understand, what is this? What are we dealing with? And it took them about almost 11 days to discover that. The first they thought he had cancer, but then they got the results back and said, no, it's not cancer. So through that, my love, one of my love language is acts of service. And so that kicked in. And so I served and I helped. And when he couldn't talk to the doctors, I talked to him. I took a stand, because at one point it was just seemed like they wasn't hearing us. And so through that, walking with him and working through all this, we had been married. This has been about 8 years ago, that it just made me understand my vows, honestly, because I wasn't going anywhere. We was going to believe and press through this. And so in that, we laughed a lot. We laugh a lot to this day. And we love to just spend time together, watching movies, rekindling our time together through conversation, surprise gifts. So along the way, we just didn't let it define our marriage. It could have, but we decided that, you know, we knew we was together. We settled that, and we had decided through sickness and health, we will fight through this, work through this, encourage each other through this, and that's was a done deal. It was no, you know, it was nothing was gonna take that love and joy and support and help him. What all it took to keep him encouraged, keep myself encouraged. That's what we did. It just like it just, I don't know. It just became natural to just fight and make it work. Whatever you do, don't give up.
I like to add one thing, that Nurse Jackie did the best care that I could ever imagine. Even my friends told me, they said, man, if we catch you messing up, we're going to beat you up because nobody took care of you.
Yes, Nurse Jackie.
Nurse.
I love it. I love it. Mommy and Daddy, I know you had a question you wanted to pose.
Not necessarily a question, but I think a point that's kind of come up, you know, kind of in the background, but it's been there. One of the things that I found out in our relationship, and I'm sure that you've seen it all in your respective relationships as well, vulnerability in marriage has the capacity to elevate another level, to take you to another level of intimacy, if you allow it to. And I think for us in our situation, you know, I've had to watch Pam go through several surgeries. The last of which, you know, when the cancer was removed, that was probably the most drastic of all of them, and it left her in a very vulnerable situation. Well, for about 4.5 weeks, I had to be the one to actually be there for her when she could not do for herself. But what I sensed out of that, what I got out of that as being the caretaker, was that because of her vulnerability, it gave me another level of appreciation for who she was and what she was actually having to walk through, given that situation and circumstances we were faced with. So you know, if in spite of the health situations that we have to deal with, I think that point of being vulnerable with our spouses really does have the capacity to kind of bring us together in ways that vulnerability outside of the marital relationship can do something to the contrary. So I just wanted to bring that point up and make that something that I think all of us can kind of rationalize in our own respective relationships.
Yeah. Thank you so much for adding that. Mickey and Kevin, I want to come to y'all with that same question about how you keep the love flowing, especially knowing that, Micaiah, at any given time, you know, there can be a sickle cell crisis that flares up. I'm going to ask Kevin specifically, keep it PG, please, sir, and thank you. But why do y'all keep the love flowing?
Please, Kevin, please.
You might get some feedback. I'm kind of in the middle of a dead zone and stuck in dead stop traffic. So
we can hear you
how
fine.
do we keep the love flowing? Okay, good. Okay, keep it PG-13. Okay, good. So I think the way in which we do that is just to kind of be very transparent. In marriage, we've been together since we've been what, 18, 19, kids. And so just kind of the love and romance in that kind of field, it's just been about honesty and kind of growth and being able and willing to grow together and please each other. But just through sickness, I think it's really about kind of being able to live in the now and be present, right? And just make sure that we've kind of made sure that we create a balance. And when there's not a balance, you know, spontaneity and, you know, kind of that part can kind of come out a little bit. You know what I mean? So then, you know, you kind of make make those moments kind of last, and you make those moments happen where you need to make those moments happen at. And so I say, all in all, I think it's just really about being present and understanding the other person and being willing to be honest and communicate as you grow and as your needs change and wants change.
Absolutely. Mick, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, he was kind of tagging where my brain was going anyway. But I think one thing for me that has reassured me of our love is the fact that I can be honest with him. And sometimes, even when I'm not honest with him about how I'm feeling, it's kind of like he already knows, and I really don't have to say anything. And so for me, that is it's huge. And that for me, like, takes me to a different place of admiration and honor for him, and helps us keep the love going. That kind of a little turn on for me. Just knowing that he understands, and knowing that I sit back, put your seatbelt on, sir. But just knowing that he knows me so well, and that I can be honest. I really can be honest. And we make the most of every moment, whether they're few and far between, when the romance is able to happen,
Which they're not. They're not. But
Thank you, Kevin.
Being that we work so close together, we have those, moments, where we can just kind of wink at each other, whatever. But I'm saying all that to say we make the most of all of our moments together, because you really don't know from one moment to the next when something's gonna pop off health related, So we just, I think we take that stance in family, in business, and in relationship with one another. We just kind of, hey, do what we got to do right now, because we don't know what 5:30 gonna look like, or 7:30, So.
Yeah, that's good. Being present in the moment. I love it. Pastor Robert and Geraldine, I want to pose that question to you all also. How do you all keep the love flowing in the middle of health challenges?
Sex, and more sex.
No, she said keep it PG. Did she just
I should have told you keep it PG too. You
I didn't get in trouble. I'm saying I didn't even get in trouble.
I'm just kidding. Hey, that's a part of it. It's important. It's important. Kevin, I want to say real quick, Kevin, you did a very good job, sir.
Yes, he did.
Good job in PG. I appreciate that. Go ahead.
Sequoia, you should have probably given that disclosure to him first.
Right.
It took a lot out of it. When we got the diagnosis, it took the wind out of both of us. But I felt like I had to win my wife back, win my children back, and then win my life back. And I did everything I could do and getting in the word, aligning my life up with the Lord, and making sure that communication stayed clear and concise. No more secrets, no more hiding. If I needed something, to ask for it, and not be a mind reader. I expect my wife to be a mind reader, and that's one of the things. One of the most important things that we had to do is learn to understand that we're not telepathic, and we need to really explain to each other what our needs are, and don't just assume that we know. And it got to one point that we just had to sit down and say, okay, because I know my love language, like the other young lady said, my love language is touch, and I wanted physical touch, especially going through the things that I had gone through, going in and out of the hospital, getting PCP pneumonia several times, and then going through all kind of other ailments, and I just want to know that I could still be touched by my wife. And I think I don't know how many times I repented profusely to not only to my wife but to my children, to let them know that no, that is screwed up, and I can't fix it, but God's going to fix it. He's gonna make this thing work. And as I line myself up vertically, he'll fix the horizontal, like the pastor said. And we just have maintained that communication, and we don't let a couple of days go by when we know that we're upset with one another and there's no talking, because that hurts more than it helps. So if I keep talking, if she says something that angers me, and I figure I'm not going to speak to her for a couple of weeks, and she'll just have to read my mind and know that I'm angry. That's not going to work in marriage, because that's what brought everything about in the first place. So we had to make sure that everything stayed open and honest.
It's great.
And for me, I'm a person who likes to keep memories. And so for me to keep the love stirred, I would remember why we got married and what were the things that brought us together, and begin to look for them again in the marriage. Because although my husband seems very serious in here, he's the comedian in the family. He keeps us laughing. Already, you know that it's not true. He's the comedian. He keeps us laughing, and just remembering those times of what we had built the marriage on before we ever got the diagnosis. We had 11 years of building the marriage. So I took those memories and began to look for those things that help make those memories in the marriage for right now. And during those times, those stays during the hospital and all those different things, remembering those times, and then also reminding him of those times when he was having very low moments, and these moments where he was feeling, just like, it was his fault and it was time for him to check out. No, there's so much more for you to live for. So I believe those were the things that we were using to help keep the love alive, remembering that, and then reminding one another, and then communicating to one another our needs, and understanding what each other's needs are.
That's great. That's really good. I appreciate you all being so very open and transparent today in our discussion. Lauren, I want to come to you, and then Pastor Todd and Pastor Ingrid, I'm going to come to you next. Just from that trauma standpoint, what are some things that you kind of help to walk people through for themselves, and then coming, in their relationships, how they can continue progressing and loving and make some headway despite health challenges?
Y'all have done a great job of touching on a lot of the key issues that we help couples and individuals work through. One of the first is to begin to understand that you are not your diagnosis, and to not have that be your defining identity, and to not allow, and for the caregiver to see beyond the person who is now, suffering health-wise. And I love what Geraldine said, that this is, remembering those times when, why I love this man. That's what we try to help them come back to, and remembering the strength. We also really encourage people to lean into each other. And that's what I've heard so much in each of y'all, is that sometimes a health crisis can cause you to separate because you're so afraid. Suddenly you fear your mortality. Suddenly it's real. And that can cause separation and divide. And by bringing yourselves back together and leaning into each other and into your faith, that gives you a strength that is so much stronger than you had before the health crisis. And so we try to help them also begin to see that each of them have individual strengths, separate from each other, because sometimes it can become almost as if you become, we use a technical term, enmeshed with the person who is sick, that you become their illness. You become consumed by all of the information and all of the negative that's surrounding that. And there's another side to that, which is to see that you also have an identity separate and apart from your partner. It's good to know as much as you can, because facts are facts. They aren't fear, and facts are critical. It's also important, though, for you to step away from just the caregiving and to begin to, or to remember that you also are an independent, loving person, and who's someone who deserves to have love as well. We also encourage them to have that intimacy again, to find ways to stay connected. Pastor Robert, I love that you were just so blunt with it, because it's true. We need touch. We need to have connection. We know that there's, proof again that if we don't, we can live for days without food and water, but we know that scientifically, if we don't have human connection, that will probably do more harm than anything else. And so connecting to each other and staying connected and finding ways through the illness to continue that connection is critical. Y'all touched on some new ways that you've come up with, some new things you've learned about each other, new ways that you've learned to continue to laugh and to share. And that's what you do, is you continue to grow through the illness, through that period, because most of the time, as y'all have all shared, the diagnosis may be long-term, but the moments of hurt, pain, suffering don't have to last forever. Those may be momentary, they may be hours, they may be days, but they don't last forever. And so being able to be present when those do occur and not continue to suffer in the past where you were hurting, or not to suffer in the future where you're worried about what may happen tomorrow, staying present is probably one of the most powerful tools that we have. And Jared, I think your cap says mindful on it. Is that right? That's huge. That's huge. Because if you can be mindful of, what am I experiencing right now? What's the joy I can notice right now in the moment? We know, again, that faith-wise, that's critical. It's also nervous system-wise important for your nervous system to begin to see that, oh, I can experience pleasant. I can experience positive and good. Or maybe at the moment, the most I can experience is neutral. Sometimes just experiencing neutral is better than experience negative. And so continuing to find those moments and remind yourself that I've had those moments can do a lot. And then I think it was Pastor Ingrid, maybe you said it, that your life follows your words. We know that what you think is what you become. What you believe is what you become. And I do a lot of work to help folks look at how they talk to themselves and about themselves, especially when they're suffering with physical illness. Because if you believe I'm never going to get better, this is going to destroy me, that's where you will go. Because again, there's a lot of spiritual power in that. There's also a lot of cellular power in that as well, because your brain and your body are made up of nerves that your mind tells your body how to respond. And so we want you to believe and to say the words and the thoughts that will take you toward healing, and give yourself the strength to stay strong in your partnership, in your marriage. So those are some of the key things that we work on, and y'all have touched on every single one of those. So I'm just excited that I get to be a part of seeing this living out in so many of these wonderful couples.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lauren. You said you had about 10 chapters in that book. that was some good stuff.
I want to get that book. I'm gonna order that today.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And I want to have Pastor Todd and Pastor Ingrid kind of piggyback on some of the things that you said, and just give us what advice you would give to couples that they find themselves having to contend with these kinds of challenges, and how they maneuver through that from that relational standpoint. Before you answer that, I just want to give you all the heads up, because I'm coming to each of you to give us one word that you would give to a couple also finding themselves in this type of challenge. Come up with one super impactful word that you would give to them? So I'm giving y'all time to think it through. All right. But go ahead, Pastor Todd and Pastor Ingrid. What's some advice you give to couples?
So I think that it's about being intentional. One of the things that I noticed in our marriage and in couples that we deal with, we speak our love language to our spouses. So for instance, my love language is acts of service. So whenever my wife is facing a health challenge, I automatically speak my love language to her, right? I go into rescue Rambo mode, start serving. And one of the things that I realized is that I have to be intentional about speaking her love language. Her love language is words of affirmation, and it's also touch, as Lauren and Pastor Robert just touched on. So I have to make sure that I'm intentional about doing what she needs and not get so wrapped up into, this rescue Rambo mode. And I'm just doing everything that I feel like I should be doing and not being intentional about what she needs me to do and speaking her love language. So I think that that's really, really important. And it's really interesting that it's like we speak different languages, and many couples do this. Her love language is words of affirmation. And she's said to me for all these years, I need you to affirm me. I need you to affirm me. But I'm so busy serving her, because serving her is what I want her to do to me. Right. and she's giving me words of affirmation, but I want her to serve me, and I'm serving her. I'm serving her, and she needs words of affirmation. So it's really about being intentional and doing what your spouse needs, and not just what you think they need.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. The other thing is we teach and coach people, and which is the name of our business, is love first. When you go to love first, and you train a person and you partner, we have couples partner and think along those lines. When something hits your life, it hits differently when you already are being trained to go to love first instead of anger, instead of whatever it is you might go to in your emotions. When you coach someone to love first and to partner, then when tragedy hits, it just hits a little bit different, and it's almost like a wall of protection to keep the couple in that same vein of love first and partnership. And our word would be love first.
Love first. Right, because y'all got it as one. Hey, love first is such a dope movement. Y'all make sure, those of you that are watching, please make sure y'all check them out, tap in with them. They have a couple of books out also that are absolutely incredible. So Pastor Todd and Ingrid Pickett, thank you so much for being on and your expertise.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And Lauren, thank you. Lauren, thank you as well. So I'm going to come around in the order that I have on the screen. Mom and Dad, Mr. and Mrs. John and Jackie Howard, give us your word, please.
I would think it's important that to keep the relationship hot, just to be honest, open, and transparent. As long as you do that, you will find miracles in sickness.
Dad, I love you so much. You did not follow instructions at all.
I was going to let her say that.
I said, give me one word.
Oh, that was more than one word?
See, right there.
All right. I'm hot. Keep the relationship hot. We got a phrase. Boom. Mom, did you have a word you want to put in there?
I was just going to say push through.
All right. Push through. Thank you so much. Lee and Liz.
Yeah.
Say a different word.
Mine is just simply faith.
Faith.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful. That's a mouthful. Thank you so much. We appreciate y'all being on. Jared and Charity, one word.
What was it? Our word is commitment with a capital C.
Capital. Yes, commitment. All right, let me see. The wards. What's your word?
Live.
Oh, yeah.
Live.
I love it. Mick and Kevin, give us your one word.
You got a word, boo? If you don't, I do. I'm frustrated right now. My word is obedience, because I should have listened to my GPS system and got off the exit when it told me to. But I wasn't obedient. And I'm going to tell you, obedience would be good, and patience. There you go. Between one of those two things, because I'm operating in a little regrets because I wasn't obedient. And I'm having to exercise extreme patience. And so both of those things I've pulled on inside of this struggle with sickness. So
obedience
is
and patience.
oh man, the prophecy is strong.
Right? Kevin, bless your heart.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll put y'all in with my word.
Thank you.
My word.
My words weren't good enough. I got it.
Your words were great, babe. I love your words. They're so transparent, and a right now word just for you. But my word, I think, would be honesty. And this is something that I've, just recently have matured in. Not saying that I've been telling lies since I was young, but I'm learning to lead with honesty, because a lot of times we like to cover, for how we feel, or try to overdo it in thoughts of, how our partner may respond. And that's not necessarily what's best for the relationship, especially when you're dealing with, illnesses and things like that. It's important to just lead with honesty. Always lead with honesty.
Honesty, 10,000%. Mommy and daddy, y'all have a word that y'all would leave folks with?
The word that I would offer is praise. And I want to say that from the standpoint that the more I can praise God, the more I can see what I have to praise her for. The more I can look to God and say thank you for life, health, and strength, the more I can see what's in her to be thankful for.
Awesome. Praise. Well, listen, you all have been absolutely amazing. Thank you, Fashion Inspirations, for allowing me to moderate this incredible panel. Those of you that are watching out there, I know that you gathered quite a few nuggets. Make sure that y'all share this. Make sure you go like and follow the Fashion Inspirations page so that somebody else can grab hold of some of these incredible gems and nuggets that were put out today. So live, be in faith, stay committed, love first, be honest, keep it hot. What was Lee and Liz's? I said committed. What did you say?
Faith.
Yeah, faith. There it is.
Yeah.
All of those things. Obedient and patient. All of that. So that y'all can keep on in sickness and in health till death do us part, and then to live again. Boom. All right, I'm gonna pass it on to you.
Thank you all so much. This was absolutely awesome. And I know that these words are going to bless many people in their respective situations and circumstances. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate each of you for sharing, opening your world, first of all, to allow others to peek into your world and to be so transparent and authentic with your sharing. And I'm overwhelmed because each time we do something like this, it always exceeds our expectations. Mm-hmm. And we know that the persons that we ask, we don't ask just anybody. We ask because we felt that these are the people that had the words to speak for this situation, for this time. Mm-hmm. And we thank you so very much for sharing that with us. We want to, before we log off of the live, if our panelists would stay on for just a moment once we end the live, But I do want to encourage our viewers if you'd like to know more about our nonprofit organization, Fashioned Inspirations, you can look at us, look at our website at www.fashionedinspirations.com. We are a nonprofit organization, and if you would like to donate, you can do so through the website. And we also have a new Cash App, Fashion Inspiration without the S. Too many letters. But if you would like to donate, please feel free to do so. And I want you to also share this with couples that you know, couples that are looking to get married. Because to be honest with you, none of us ever expected any of this. Mm-hmm. You know, with the exception of Micaiah and Kevin. Kevin went into it knowing, but we didn't know we were going to walk through cancer, Lee. Mm-hmm. You know, we didn't know we were going to walk through HIV and AIDS. You know, you never know any of this. You never know that you're going to have something that the CDC didn't even know what it was. You know, so we could all be a diagnosis away from something that we never expected. So walking into it with your eyes open and seeing and hearing these testimonies has given some people some things that you own. And really, you know, think about when those vows are not just words. Mm-hmm. When you say in sickness and in health, you never expect sickness. Mm-hmm. But here we are. Mm-hmm. So thank you all so very much. And we appreciate our listeners. Thank you. Please share. And yes.
We would be remiss if we just did not give a shout out to the awesome moderator that kind of got us out the track, got us out the starting gates right, and kept us on track and really pulled us. Thank you so much to my eldest daughter, Sequoia. You keep doing what you're doing. God is blessing you in a multitude of ways. We thank you so much for that. And as Pam has already elaborated, we thank each and every one of you all for being here, and may you just have a blessed and happy, wholesome, praise-filled, faithful-filled, and intentional, and for Robert and Geraldine, a hot night. Bless God.
Goodbye to our viewers. Our panelists will just stay on for just a moment.